Back again on Monday for another Rick Corey Sports Special with Loren Montgomery, the head football coach at Bixby, a smiling man after a trip down to Choctaw and a nice win. That ball game, quarter and a half, fairly tight. You got a touchdown from Brody, and things really pulled away. What changed right about there, Loren?
Well, I tell you, just we were able to sustain some drives, and I was really proud of the defense. We gave up a lot of yards, however, we kept them out of the end zone. We had some big plays on third and fourth down to stop drives, and Choctaw was very aggressive as far as going forward on fourth down. And so, thought our guys did a really good job of rallying and getting a couple of stops and allowing our offense to get out there and operate.
You and I talked about traveling and how that normally is handled and things. How did the trip go? It's a little bit longer, and it's still early in the season, and it's one of those deals you have to kind of work through.
It was our first true road test as far as an hour and a half trip.
Yeah.
Had a few things to contend with as far as not the best like you're going to get at most places, not the best locker room situation, and then dealing with the heat just a little bit. We had to make sure we managed that because I think it was 97 at kickoff, the hottest game that we've had so far. And it makes you nervous coming off of a bye week
Yeah.
to see how you're going to react, and hopefully we conditioned well during that bye week. And so, yeah, having to make sure our kids were hydrated and prepared and handled a road trip like a championship team.
So hydration, any issues? Have any cramping?
A little bit, but for the most part, I thought our kids held up really well. I talked to Coach Myers, our strength and conditioning coach, and we do a lot of things to hopefully mitigate that. And some of our high rep guys that are getting snaps on both sides of the ball, we had to manage a little bit, but no, not a ton, maybe one or two little cramps we caught, but felt like we did well.
Well, and you talked before about you really would have rather had the bye week right before get into district play, but you didn't. But in this way, you kind of got a tune up for district. How are you feeling going into what really, I mean, kind of second season counts?
Yeah, it does. District play begins, and everything has implications as far as home field advantage, where you go in the playoffs, bye weeks, all that. And so, starting to focus on district play. We've made some strides. I think we're getting better at football and X's and O's and doing some things well there. It's kind of some other stuff, some immaturity things that we need to clean up as far as penalties and communication and understanding down and distance and big picture things. And we've had some guys in years past that have been veterans, extremely smart, and now we're breaking in some newer starters and some younger guys. And so unfortunately there's only one way to learn. Sometimes you have to be in those situations and get coached up. And so looking forward to seeing our team take a next step and opening up in a big district game Friday night.
Situational awareness. That's the thing that we were talking about over the weekend, as a matter of fact, in the Tulsa game. There are times when you'll see a player, you can see the kind of the cogs turning. And I always ask myself, I wonder, is that something when players are young, you guys cover? I mean, there were those of us who grew up outside always with nothing like a computer game, and I'm not going to do one of those in my day things, but there seemed to be in some cases more football intelligence earlier when kids were outside more rather than on video games. I'm wondering, do you see that, or do you think that most of the ones coming now are about the same as they've always been?
Well, I think that brings up a good point. There are so many things for kids to do. Some kids don't start football until later.
Yep.
I think there are pluses and minuses to starting football young, but I think kids understand more about down and distance and, as you said, situational awareness. Also, when we were growing up, there were fewer things for the kids to do, so kids would go home and watch more football as opposed to maybe, do other things, video games and whatnot. And so there's some of that. But then we also have some kids that are super football smart, and that's what they do. And believe it or not, I think NCAA and Madden and some of those things that the kids are doing do help some of that awareness. One of the things that we do all through the off season and summer, we do a little thing called 5 minute football where we take situations like maybe a 2 minute situation, maybe a boneheaded play, maybe a special team scenario on where you would or wouldn't want to touch the ball. And we do little 5 minute lessons on those each day. And so hopefully that helps our guys. But sometimes you just really got to be in that moment and be in that situation and learn from it.
Yep, that makes good sense. All right, before we leave the Choctaw game, obviously great game from your quarterback. Carson played very well. Did you know going in they were going to give him some things, or did he just have one of those games?
No, he played well. I think if you talk to him, there are some things that he would like to have back and to do again. I think the best thing that he did was step up in the pocket, be patient, and deliver the ball, under a little bit of duress at times. He does that really well. He can extend plays. He had a long 55-yard run at one point on a scramble. He's extremely fast when he's in the open field, and so he did some good things there. We knew we thought we knew, we had an idea of what Choctaw was going to be a little bit. Their defense coordinator is a former coach on our staff, and so you see a lot of similar personality. So we thought we would have an idea, and we had some pretty good game tape, and thought for the most part we executed fairly well.
All right, so now it goes into district play. As we said, it does ramp up a little bit. Do you feel that intensity from your team? Do you talk about it at all?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're such a young team trying to find an identity, trying to grow that you don't necessarily have to talk about anything changing gears because each week we are kind of changing gears and taking a big step forward. And I think that's what we see out of our kids. It really goes without saying that this is a big game. The kids from both communities know one another. We've played against each other and had some really good battles, over the last, I guess, I think the first time we beat them in 40 years was 2017. And so it's kind of become a rivalry since then. And, our kids know. And Friday nights in Bixby are special. We have great crowds. The environment is wonderful on Friday nights. And so I think everybody will be amped up and ready to play.
As a matter of fact, if you want a restaurant reservation in Bixby, get it Friday night because if it's a home game, everybody's at the stadium. All right, so this Jinx team coming in, they know that district plays beginning too. Still, kind of a wounded animal at 1-2. When you look at them, what do you think they do really well? Caden Jones is going to be an obvious, but what are you looking at?
They're probably the best 1-2 team in the state. They're excellent. They've gotten beat by two really good football teams, and they're to a certain extent they've got a lot of new starters. They've got a lot of returning starters. They got a lot of new starters and transfers that are very very talented. And so I think maybe they're similar to us in that they're trying to find their identity and way. And they're just crazy talented at every position. In fact, one of our coaches that was doing a breakdown on them talked about just how talented of a team he thought they were. One of our new coaches just breaking down the film. And so, yeah, I mean, just a good team that you're going to have to be prepared for, and your guys are going to really have to know what they're doing, and every guy's going to have to win their battle at a man level and do their job in order for the entire group to be successful.
Now, you've had guys like Caden Jones on your team because you've had the Presley boys and you have another one coming up. There are dudes like that who are just quick. They're hard to tackle. I mean, you certainly practice that in practice, but you can't really demonstrate it, the same as having a guy like that. Do you game plan against a guy or do you game plan against the entire offense?
Well, with Jinx, they're very talented and they got weapons everywhere and they've got an excellent scheme. So it all centers around number two, but you can't just focus on one guy or one thing. You have to defend everything that they do, and they do a lot, and they do a lot well. So you have to have a plan, and I think one of the biggest things on a guy like Caden Jones, because he can break tackle after tackle after tackle, and you certainly don't want to get him in the open field because he's got sprinter speed. You have to gang tackle, and you have to have a lot of guys playing hard running to the football, and so that's something that we're not where we want to be yet, but we better be on Friday night.
Be in the frame when it ends, or
Yeah,
else. Yeah, we've been around
exactly. Yeah.
those coaches as well. Flip it over on their defense. What do you see there that impresses you?
Well, it all goes around Sam Stone. He's a 3-year starter for him, and he's literally started at outside linebacker, defensive end, and safety for him. He can play any position on their defense, and it revolves around him. He allows them to do a lot, but they're physical. They've got two inside linebackers that are as good as we've seen all year, as good as we will see that are returners. big physical defensive line, ton of speed, talent in the backfield. Everybody knows about Samaj Stanford and a couple of the guys in the backfield that they have, and so just not really any blemishes, not really any weak spots when you break them down, and so it's going to be quite the test for our offense and our offensive line particularly.
You mentioned since these schools are somewhat, near each other, it's kind of like the old Union Jinx days. They talked about how they grew up with each other and they played against each other, but you're really kind of bordering communities too. Do you feel extra juice for this one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a big game, whether it's Jinx on their chest or just the first district game. There's a lot of implications riding on it, and it's another test for our guys. We've had a couple of good ones to find out, where we're at, where we've grown, and then where we have to go.
Anything left in this for you? I mean, you certainly have history at Jinx. You've got great roots there. You've been Bixby such a long time. I mean, unless you've been around high school football for a while, people go, "Oh, Loren Montgomery, he's just a Bixby guy." Well, every coach in Oklahoma's got roots somewhere else, and you've had some there. Do you still have that feeling at all when you walk out against them?
Yeah, it's always a neat deal. It's where I started. I cut my teeth with Alan Trimble over there, and Courtney she still helps out, does the equipment and sets her filmers up. In fact, I'll probably hear from her this week about finding spots for the filmers. And I know a lot of people over there in that community, and so it's a fun game, and it's always fun to see some of those familiar faces.
Well, I promise you, if I weren't on the air broadcasting a game of my own, I'd be there because I mean, this one's going to be quite special. Bixby's going to be rocking. Good luck on Friday night, Coach.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.